Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Anastasia Meyer, an extension agricultural economist with the University of Nebraska-Lincoln Center for Agricultural Profitability. Today, our part of the center's webinar series is going to focus on some human resources aspects. These webinars take place every day, every Thursday at this time. You can find the schedule of upcoming webinars as well as an archive of every recording that we have done at cap.unl.edu. Today's topic is farm and ranch employee intake and onboarding is important in setting the tone of the relationship between the managers and the workers, whether they are related or not. Onboarding new employees offers them the same opportunities to get an overview of the operation, learn about employment policies, be introduced to other employees, and learn about job duties. Doing these things are keys to helping create an understanding of responsibilities of the job, as well as foster open communication with employees and help with potential employee retention. Presenting today is Shannon Sand. She is an agricultural economist with the Center for Agricultural Profitability. Shannon is based out of North Platte at UNL's West Central Research Extension and Education Center. She'll highlight the strategies and best practices of intake on onboarding in hopes that farm and ranch managers can implement systems to foster open communication that lead to improved employee retention. If you have any questions, enter them in the chat and we will answer them at the end. Shannon, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Anastasia. I appreciate it. Okay, just let me know if you can see everything. Thumbs up. Okay, good deal. All right, so like Anastasia said, my name is Shannon Sand. I'm a regional agricultural economics extension educator. I'm currently located out in North Platte at the West Central Research Extension and Education Center. This is my contact information if you have any questions after we're done with this and this presentation ends, or you're watching it on the playback, just let me know. So we're going to go over a couple of things. We're going to talk about employee intake and onboarding on the farm and ranch, right? So a couple of things we're going to hopefully focus on is, why is it important? What is onboarding? And then what's in an onboarding plan? Because I don't know about y'all, but I need to know what goes into that. And then what are those job duties and descriptions, right, that also go with that? And then training. So what's our day one, week one kind of look like in terms of an onboarding program potentially? So again, why is it important, right? Hiring is really difficult nowadays. I think everybody can kind of agree with it. It's no secret that it's definitely in an employee's market. So once you have found someone, even if you're related to them, it's really important to set them and yourself up for success. It can take several weeks to months for new employees to reach their full potential on the operation. Again, depending on the operation, and I'm kind of trying to keep it general as possible, but there's a broad amount of agriculture is covered in the state of Nebraska. So we have everything from cow-calf to corn and beans, sugar beets, all the way up to orchard and nursery operations in the state, and all those fall under ag. So again, I'm going to try and be broad, but when I say farm and ranch, that does include everything. So again, those changes in work environment and understanding expectations, building rapport with new coworkers, those sorts of things can actually limit productivity. So a thorough onboarding plan can really reduce this lag in productivity by introducing employees kind of key ways and ideas on how to be successful early on. So again, like I said, hiring is difficult. It's an employee's market. A lot of times, if you're hiring now, we've done some hiring in the last few months on my family operation and stuff, and lack of applications, lack of relevant work experience. Oftentimes, we'd like someone to have ag experience, but sometimes we're bringing people in with no ag experience that are just real enthusiastic and want to, see what agriculture is all about. There's a lack of hard skills. Again, do you know how to fix fence? I've been fixing fence since I was 5 or 6, but I recognize that someone brought in may not have those skills. And then the lack of soft skills, which not everybody really wants to talk about, but how well do you get along with your neighbor or your friend or your coworkers? Or oftentimes in small operations, small or medium size, right? We're talking about how well do you get along with your siblings or your cousins or extended relatives. So again, having those soft skills are really, really important things when we're looking at people to hire. So again, training. So the time needed to properly train, regardless of experience. Again, just because we require 3 to 5 years of agricultural experience, right? Maybe they're going from a dairy farm to corn and beans. That's completely different experiences. That's completely different lifestyle. Or even if you're going from a dairy to a cow calf operation, again, completely different sets of industries, although they fall under that broad term of agriculture, right? So it's going to take time to properly train someone, regardless of their experience, even if they are going from, let's say, cow calf to cow calf, because everybody's operation is ever so slightly different, even if you're related to them. Again, I'll say maybe it's an uncle and a nephew or an uncle and a niece, right? Again, the way their daddy runs it is not necessarily the way you run your operation again. So you're going to have some training that has to take place and just kind of understand that. So generally, it takes several weeks to months to really reach your full production potential or the employee's full production potential. But a strong onboarding process has been shown to increase productivity by over 70% within those first few months rather than that lag, like I said, that usually happens because you got to ask all the questions. You don't even know who to ask. Do people even know you're coming? There's a lot of that stuff that can go on. So it's hard to keep good help. When we find good help, can we keep it, right? So again, this is not necessarily things that I think a lot of people think of, but depending on the industry, what is their first impression of your operation? Are they excited? Do they want to meet all those other employees? Again, building that rapport. So I know some groups I'm gonna say some groups, some operations, they all have lunch together every day, right? So that helps to build that like rapport pretty quick and right away. So everybody kind of eats together, everybody visits over that time. You can chat and do all that and build that rapport, right? So some of those sorts of things can be really helpful. Um, in certain cases and in some operations, right? So that building of rapport, that's really important. You're more likely to have higher retention if I mean, and not everybody's going to get along all the time, let's be honest. But if you can get along most of the time, you are more likely to do that. And then using good onboarding strategies based on research have been shown to increase retention by 82% on the operation. So, and this was specifically of farms and ranches. So, again, our goal is higher retention, lower turnover. So we really want people to be there for the long haul, make that personal investment, have those goals to be there long term if we can. So that work environment, again, some keys to success for any employee. This is really important. And I'm probably going to say this more than once, to be honest. Um, know who to go to for questions because a new employee does not know what they don't know. Like I said, you may have someone come, a niece or a nephew coming into the operation, but if they don't know who to ask, what's your personal like management and like hierarchical structure and organization is set up like, they don't know. And if they don't know who to ask questions to, or again, if you don't have that kind of rapport built up within the group, um, it can cause a lot of problems. People don't want to ask questions and then they're left to figure it out and then they don't know what they're doing, so they don't figure it out right. I mean, I'm sure we've all experienced that either as managers or employees, where we've had that sort of thing happen. Most employees, especially with new ones with that limited ag experience, will likely, like I said, have that lack of knowledge and understanding. But even employees with those ag experiences are still going to have questions. So make sure everyone knows who they can ask for help so that you set them up for success. Understanding processes and procedures, what goes on the operation day to day, how that happens, help them figure out how to get integrated into that workplace, that positive work environment that keeps others working at your farm is really important for new hires to see early and often. Getting the hang of things happens sooner and more effectively when the new employee feels like asking questions is normal and that they will be treated with respect when they risk revealing ignorance, right? Because again, you don't know what you don't know. And I'm not psychic. I don't know about anybody else, but again, you just don't know what you don't know when you're new, and everybody's operation is slightly different. In an atmosphere of disrespect and impatiency, we know statistically that the tendency is for people to hide that need for help, like I said. So, what's in an onboarding plan, you may be asking yourself? So, these are kind of the general steps or general things included in an onboarding plan. So, it's things like the initial welcome. So, you want to show your new hire that you're glad to have them join the team with like a warm welcome. Clarify the employee's name and how they prefer to be referred to. Sometimes your government name is Charles, but you prefer to go by Charlie or Chuck, right? So, again, just clarifying that. Make sure you've communicated the new hire's arrival to other key people so they can share in the enthusiasm. If you think about it, it can be really disheartening when a new employee comes in, if nobody at the workplace knew they were coming. I've talked to several people where that has actually happened. And to be honest, out of those 3 people, 2 of them didn't end up staying in their jobs. So think about it. If the manager or the owner doesn't convey that someone new is coming, what kind of welcome are they going to get? I mean, obviously, you're going to immediately be met like, who is this random person showing up to the farm or the ranch? Why are they here? This is private property. So again, you're going to be, I mean, the employees and the managers are potentially going to be on guard because again, they don't know that that's happening. So really important. You want to share your farm vision and mission statements if you have them so that the new hire can understand what you value. Again, if you can include a farm or ranch or operation tour and introductions, that can add a positive first impression. So let them take them out, have them meet the other employees if possible, things like that. General information and procedures. So new employees will want to know where to put their belongings. Do they have a locker? Do they just need to leave it locked up in their truck or their vehicle? Is there a uniform or dress code? Again, depending on the operation, there may be. Where are we having lunch? Or is it at the kitchen table? Is there a picnic table? Do we have a break room? What are the location of the restrooms? I know some of these things seem silly, but again, think about it from a new hire perspective. If you're just starting, you don't know what you don't know. Also talk about things like um, cell phone use and use of farm vehicles and equipment. So, for example, some ag operations have proprietary information and technology and may not allow cell phone use or phone use with cameras. Or again, with that uniform situation, right? So they may have some biosecurity things, security risks that they're trying to mitigate by doing certain by having uniforms, having them shower in, shower out, things like that. It's also really important to talk about that work time or hours and pay, right? It's important to set expectations up front regarding start times and hour expectations. So if we work from 8 to 8, people need to know that up front, right? Include any seasonal variations and overtime in those expectations. So I think of calving season, I think of planting and harvesting, haying season, all those, again, depending on what sort of operation they're working on, you need to talk about those up front and be like, hey, if it's calving season, if we have inclement weather, we're going to need you here if you can get here kind of thing. So it's also a good time to cover call-in procedures. Um, we don't Agriculture doesn't have a sick day, but the reality is people get sick and things happen, unfortunately. So again, talking about how that works, if there's an emergency and they need to call out, um, is there vacation? Is there sick and or personal days? These policies oftentimes vary widely from operation to operation. And then set expectations for feedback and performance reviews. Again, I need to know how high that bar is set and what steps do I need to do to reach that bar so that I make sure I'm progressing the way that my manager wants me to. So again, think of things like that. So the actual job, so here's where your completed job description, which we'll go into in a little more depth later on, comes in handy as you explain the procedures and tools basically for the success of that position. Again, what are those pieces that you need to know in order to reach that bar? Organizational charts can also give a new hire an idea of who to go to with questions. Again, you're going to have questions no matter what. It's also a great time to discuss potential career paths on your operation. So, highlight success stories of employees who have moved into advanced roles on the operation. Can be a powerful tool and a motivator basically for a new hire. And it basically empowers them to view the opportunity as a long term career. So, so your philosophy about safety is the last step. So I know this is one that I don't know how many people think of included in onboarding plan, but I specifically include this one in ag for very obvious reasons. I think if you've ever lived and or worked on an operation, you don't want to miss this important step to emphasize, the importance of employee safety and well-being, and you want to create a culture of caring that makes a great impact. I always think approaching like farm and ranch safety from a standpoint of sincerely caring about the individual and their health versus a list of rules, right? Is always better. So if it's explained basically like, okay, this is where we like mix pesticides, this is the training you have to go through, this is the certifications we need to get you, this is, where we do all of these things, why we do all of these things, we want to make sure again that your health and safety is like foremost in our mind, right? We want to make sure you're safe and that your family's safe, right? Because a lot of people are going home to their families after this. So, um, ah, so just a little note on organizational structure. Generally in ag, it's kind of one of two ways. It's either flat or hierarchical. So flat organizations generally, as you can see here, have very few levels of middle management between leadership and employees, or in this case, and in some cases, no middle management whatsoever. So, small organizations and startups often have flat structures because they have fewer employees and less of a need for hierarchical management, right? So, if you look at this, you can see it's just direct. So, oftentimes on smaller operations, this is the way it is. You're just actually talking to either the manager or owner. So, some pros of the flat organizational structure are that it avoids excess layers of management and elevates employees' level of responsibility and lends itself to smaller operations. So it's just real easy to set up. It's simple. If they know you're the one to ask questions to, they're going to ask those questions to you. Hierarchical organizations from this chart, as you can see, are a little bit more complicated. So they generally are using multiple levels of management and a chain of command. Larger organizations use this structure to keep that span of control, or basically the number of direct reports per leader, to kind of a manageable number. As you can see from the chart, so some of the pros of a hierarchical organization are that it clearly defines go-to people who you ask questions to. It provides more progression opportunities for employees, and it can accommodate business growth. So if you're thinking your business is going to move beyond what it is and you want to do, growth, I was like, this may be something to think about either now or in the future in terms of organization. So now we're going to move on to what's included in a job description, because this is a question I don't know about Anastasia, but I know that I get asked quite often actually, is what's included in a job description. So there are four main things that are really included in a job description. So that's the use of a descriptive title that's going to best capture the responsibilities of the position, but does not limit the scope. So as an example, right, a calf feeder or a milker, that's a really narrow scope that you're saying what that person does. So it may be too narrow if they're doing other general duties, which are routinely expected, right? So when you select a title, you also don't want to use discriminatory terms such as hired man. I know that's a term that's used a lot, but something like a crop production team member or a ranch technician are a little bit more generic, a little more open. So the second step is to really provide a job summary. You want to kind of give a concise description of the primary duties. This is a very short description. It's only one paragraph or less, and it basically builds on the job title and is used for recruiting purposes, right? So mention the work culture that you try to emulate on your farm and why an individual would want to work for you. So the third thing is to outline those core duties. So start with the most important duties, followed by those that may be performed less frequently. Bullet points are really a great way to make these responsibilities stand out. Start bulleted sentences. You kind of want to start with those active words such as operate, maintain, perform, versus things like assist or observe, which are kind of weaker words. So again, you want to make sure to describe all primary day-to-day activities in this section. Indicating whom the role reports to can also help candidates understand how that role is going to fit in within the overall operation and organization. So, for example, take direction from the farm manager will let the potential employee know how the day-to-day reporting structure works. Use current employees if they have time. I'm giving that caveat because I know how busy they are and how busy y'all are, or how busy everybody is, right? To develop this section of the job description if you can, because they can give valuable input into what actual tasks and responsibilities should be included and like what the majority of their day to day is like. So the last section is necessary skills and experience. So this should include things like knowledge, experience, education, and training necessary to perform the job. Must have skills should include the word required. Now, it might be really tempting. I know. Okay, so when I've built job descriptions, sometimes they're all required. And then you have to go back through and kind of edit it, quite frankly. So it's really tempting to list every qualification in an ideal candidate as required, but too many responsibilities may discourage really good people from applying, right? So if a skill would be nice to have, but does not exclude potential candidates, if they don't have it, then use the word preferred. So as an example, I think one that a lot of people have probably seen at some point, truck driving experience required, CDL is preferred. So just it can be just that simple. This section should also include both hard skills and soft skills. So hard skills are technical requirements that are necessary to perform the job, such as like operating a skid steer. Soft skills are behavioral or personality traits that could help an individual be successful in their role. So examples of soft skills are handle cattle calmly or working well with a team. Physical requirements should also be included in this section. So again, another one you often see a lot of times is the ability to lift 15 pounds routinely, right? Or the position requires standing for long periods of time. Think about it. Again, depending on the position, depending on your operation, these are things that should potentially be included in that, again, that section. So now I'm going to give you guys a couple of examples of some job descriptions, and these do take more than one slide, so I apologize in advance, but if you would like these examples, I would be happy to email them to you later. So this first one is of a crop production team member. So it is Nebraska Family Farms is a large row crop operation located in Anytown, Nebraska. We grow corn and soybeans in Northeast Any County. We run a progressive agriculture operation that uses some of the newest precision ag technologies and practices available. We are a family owned and value our employees like a part of our extended family. Again, this kind of gives you that job summary and also includes that little sentence on work culture and kind of your expectations. So the job duties, an outline of the core duties, though job duties include but are not limited to. I like to include that a lot because sometimes, again, things pop up. Manage precision agriculture equipment and ensure accurate collection of data in the field. Perform light maintenance on equipment and work around the shop. Operate farm equipment, including tillage, nutrient application, sprayers, tender trucks, and harvesting, as well as use of onboard computing systems. Again, if this is an operation that's using a lot of technology, Some of those hard skills are going to be important. Operate tractor trailers related to logistics of grain and ag inputs. Utilize technology and farming practices on every trip across our farm. So perform light maintenance of equipment, including oil changes, changing wear points, light welding, and working on implements. Maintain clean working area in the shop, on the grounds, and in tractors, and then follow farm safety guidelines and training. So some skills and experience, again, necessary skills and experience, this last section. So 3 to 5 years of production agricultural experience required. Again, that could be pretty wide, but you can narrow it down if you want to say specifically, crop production, agricultural experience. So you could make this even more narrow if you need it to be. Willing to work long hours during planting and harvesting. And then there's a note in here that says during planting and harvesting seasons, it is not uncommon to work long hours outside of that. Outside of that, we typically work 40 to 45 hours a week with occasional weekends. And then demonstrate a general knowledge of agronomic management practices, as well as a willingness to learn and the ability to use the technology associated with modern equipment and record keeping. Knowledge of mechanical operation of agricultural equipment, including routine maintenance and repair. Ability to work as a team and assist others depending on the task at hand. Effective communication with colleagues and with management, including the ability to develop a productive and cooperative relationship with others. That's some of those soft skills we've been talking about. Valid driver's license is required. The CDL is preferred. So again, that's a hard skill. Ability to lift 50 pounds routinely and heavier lifts less frequently with available assistance. I will say if you put this with available assistance, make sure assistance is available. So driven personality, desire to succeed, and a team player with a positive attitude. So here's another sample job description, just because I like more than one. I don't know about y'all. So here's a ranch hand / technician / team member. I gave you a few different options on what to call it. So a Nebraska ranch family is a medium-sized cow-calf operation located in Anytown, Nebraska. We focus on breeding and genetics of the calves we produce. We are a family-owned operation and value our employees like they are part of our extended family. So the job duties include, but are not limited to, provide a variety of basic agricultural duties to support production activities to a cow-calf operation, provide general care and husbandry for approximately 600 to 800 cattle, maintain machinery and fences, again, some of those hard skills, assist with pasture management, assist with the collection of data to be used in herd improvement, irregular hours during calving season and work in inclement weather required. Travel between pastures and facilities is also required. So for skills and experience, a high school diploma plus 1 year beef livestock production experience required. So again, this is pretty specific on that experience that they want someone to have who applies for this job. Equivalent education / experience will be considered. So precision, accuracy, and attention to detail is necessary. You need a valid driver's license, a demonstration of a general knowledge of agricultural management practices, as well as a willingness to learn and the ability to use the technology associated with modern equipment and record keeping, ability to work as a team and assist others depending on the task at hand, effective communication with colleagues and with management, including the ability to develop a productive and cooperative relationship with others. Again, some of those soft skills. So now that we have a really solid job description, we have an idea of what should be included in our onboarding training. So day 1, week 1. What should we actually include? And I'm even going to go before then, to be honest with y'all. I'm going to talk about pre-boarding. So generally, there is a delay between accepting a job offer and an employee actually starting. So this is kind of a good time to get certain paperwork related tasks done if possible. Not everybody has time, and some employees leave one job and start the other one, with the 2 weeks notice kind of thing day after. So they may not have time to get that done if you need it done. But it is also a good time to share day 1 tasks and other instructions, as well as contact information with them. It's also a really good time during this pre-boarding, that's what I'm calling it, basically, of employees to inform the rest of the employees that a new person will be starting on X date, X time, or whatever, and they're going to show up to field Y. So that's kind of a good idea for that pre-boarding section, which I call, right before they start, basically. So again, that day one, week one, we want to welcome them, right? So we want them to feel welcome. So introduction to leadership team and key teammates, clarification of the name the employee prefers to be known by. Again, sometimes Charles goes by Chuck or Charlie. My younger brother's name is John, and he goes by his initials because he's a junior, right? So you also want to share that farm vision and mission statement if you have those. If you need help writing those, cap.unl.edu has some information on that. General information and procedures. So you want to review any sort of offer letter or, basically whatever they've accepted, and clarify any questions if they have any. Again, location of restrooms, personal storage areas or lockers, if there's any, employee bulletin boards, where there are break areas, where we're having lunch. Is there a policy on personal cell phone use? Again, we've kind of talked about that. Depending on the operation, you might have proprietary information or technology or equipment. Um, the policy on company equipment, how it's used, how it's maintained, things, those are really important things. We want to maintain that equipment to last as long as possible. Also, policy on any facilities that we have. So things like that. So hours and pay. So this one again encompasses quite a bit if you really it doesn't seem like it, but encompasses a lot. So your start time and your daily hour expectations on average, right? And you also want to go over any again, uh do we expect someone to be there during harvesting or longer hours during harvesting, longer hours during calving, inclement weather, anything like that? So that's the time to go over that when we're talking about those hours and the pay, right? Start time and daily hour expectations, meal and break periods. Uh, when do we break for meal? So some operations break for meal every day at the same time. They all sit together, they all hang out, things like that. Um, any break periods that are federally required, things like that. Overtime requirements or options, again, kind of what time of year is it more likely that we're going to have some overtime requirements. Call-in procedures if you're unable to work when expected. Again, unfortunately, stuff does happen in life, and sometimes we end up needing to call out. Tardiness and absenteeism policy. If you don't have some of these, it might be a good idea. Again, there's some information out there if you want. We are happy to provide you some additional resources for this stuff, but tardiness and absenteeism policy. Are you using a time key card or a timekeeping procedures? What are those? Is it an app? There's a lot of people that use apps now on the farm to keep time. So paycheck distribution, is it every 2 weeks? Is it once a month? Is it every week? The where, when, and how. Is it direct deposit only? Do you only print paper checks? How is that happening? The starting pay rate, including any incentive wages or bonuses. And then the relation to that, to relation of future pay increases to merit, longevity, or other factors. Again, how high is the bar set? What are my steps to reach the bar? What are performance indicators that you need along the way for me to meet those merit raises so that I can hopefully get those, as an employee can hopefully get those pay increases over time. Fringe benefits that are available. So do we have 401k? Is there insurance? Is there dental, vision? Are there other fringe benefits? Maybe you allow a lot of times employees, there may be housing. So things like that. And then procedures for use of vacation, sick, or personal days, how those are, if those are available, things like that. And then performance review and appraisal process. Again, I got to know where that bar is. I got to know the steps to get to that bar to like reach that. So again, and then the job. So job duties and scope, review that job description with them. Tour of the farm or operation and specific areas where the employee will be working. So again, depending on the operation, maybe they're only in one section, maybe that's all they need to go to, but if you can, it's always nice to let them tour the whole section. So introduction to other team members. Again, ideally, the team members have been informed a new employee is coming, because that can, again, really set a positive tone. So introduce to other team members, basically organizational structure and that chain of command. Who do I ask questions to? So those are really important. Standard operating procedures and tools. So that SOP, if you have those developed, use those. Any job specific performance expectations and work standards. Again, how high is that bar? What are those steps? What are those performance indicators we're looking for? So product quality requirements and expectations, if there are any, again, depending on the ag industry we're in, those might, that might be a real thing. So, and then is there a potential career path? Are there any promotional opportunities and anticipated time to achieve them? How long is it going to take me? And then last but not least, that farm safety philosophy, right? So all elements of the company injury and illness prevention program. So kind of, what's required, those rules, regulations. But again, really try to state it in a way so that we're really trying to talk about the safety of the employee, because that really is a big thing. We don't want people to get sick. We don't want people to get hurt. Safety is key in a lot of places. Any sort of pesticide safety training and equipment, if it's applicable, use and care of work equipment. Again, all of this goes back to safety. Identification and location of workplace hazards. So where are the pesticides and the chemicals kept? Use, storage, and disposal of any hazardous chemicals. How is that done? Is there a certain time of year? Is there a certain time of the month? When is it done? Use of personal protective equipment, including clothes, footwear, respiratory, eye, and hearing protection if needed. So again, that safety one is really key because operations can be dangerous if people are not paying attention. So, and that's a thing we want to try hammering home. So, don't forget, right? So, kind of look at goals. What are the goals of your operation? What are some performance indicators that can be used for employees to watch and look at? Again, I need to know how high the bar is, what those performance indicators are so that I can reach that. What is a work culture, right? Having a positive, good work culture is really, really helpful. And I understand that a lot of times we're related to each other. And sometimes that can be very difficult. So sometimes you have to set ground rules for work too. I know we talk a lot about ground rules in business meetings and family business meetings, but sometimes if we need to set those for day-to-day work, we can do that as well. Just to help, keep a positive work culture if needed. And then ongoing check-ins with that new employee over time, just again, to make sure they're meeting those performance indicators that we talked about, whatever those may be, and that they're reaching that bar. Because we want them to be successful, because if they're successful, the operation's successful and everything is just working wonderful. And then we're all human, so everybody's going to make a mistake at some point, right? It's going to happen. So, along with those ongoing check-ins, if anything happens and we need to do revisions and improvements as necessary, that's kind of the time to be doing that. Not at the end of the year, not 6 months in, not when we've let stuff build up, but again, revisions and improvements as necessary, and keep it part of that ongoing check-in. And you need to be checking in with your employees when they first started out, uh, fairly often. And then as time goes on, you can check in less and less as needed. So, and then, so kind of going back to one of our earlier slides, I talked about that, that we have a labor shortage in the US, and it's in more than just the US. It's in a lot of places. So just a quick discussion with regards to that. More and more producers are utilizing the H2A in recent years. It's a really nice option. The popularity has increased 5 times since '05. It's very popular here in Nebraska. It allows individuals from foreign countries to fill seasonal agricultural positions left vacant by American workers. So I'm going to go through kind of the standard filing process with you, so you can kind of know what that is in case you need that. And if you need additional information on this, again, we will be happy to provide that. So the standard filing process for hiring an H2A worker should take around 75 days and will include all these following steps, right? So the farmer or the operator applies for a domestic job order with local state workforce agency. And then you're going to apply, then the operator is going to apply for a temporary labor certification with the Department of Labor's Chicago National Processing Center, specifically that one. The Department of Labor's Chicago National Processing Center provides the operator with a final determination. And you have to meet certain standards. There's a bunch of paperwork to fill out with that, but this is a good option, again, with the labor shortage. So once the farmer or rancher completes an H-2A visa petition with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, that's the group you're turning it into, workers can apply for the H-2A visa with the Department of State and complete consulate interviews, okay? So approved workers will travel to the work site and arrive on the start date with an arrival and departure record. So some things to think about this, because this is being utilized a lot more with regards to producers nowadays, right? So language barrier. Oftentimes, if you have more than one, generally at least one of them one person will generally have some knowledge of English. However, again, that language barrier is going to exist. And, se habla español. Sí o no. Not everybody speaks Spanish, myself included. Not very well. So there are language apps out there that you can download. There are AI translation options that are pretty good. Google Translate, Bing Translator, Amazon Translate, iTranslate, Sistran, ChatGPT, DeepL. There's several of them out there if you need them. But keep in mind, they're not perfect. And then do you need to learn some basic essential phrases? So it's up to you. It's whatever you decide, but these are some things to think about, when you're onboarding someone. Can you communicate all of the needs and the tasks that need to happen with them? So again, it depends. So some things to think about with that H-2A, right? There are H-2A costs. So there are application and filing fees. There are consulate fees, transportation to and from the home country, room and board, and then the surety bond, right? So it covers liability. So these are just some things to think about. But again, this has been a good option for a lot of producers in general. I know some haven't had good luck, but again, other considerations: insurance, workman's comp, liability, health insurance. Oftentimes, if you're a small or medium-sized producer, in regards to workman's comp, there are some exclusions. So look those up if you have questions about those. Again, liability, health insurance, all those become important things as we get older. OSHA compliance, 10 or fewer employees are partially exempt, right? But it's still important to provide safety, a safe environment, regardless of the size of your operation. Again, we really want to make sure our friends and our family who end up working with us or for us are safe and long-term. So, all right. So that is all I have. If you guys have any questions, I will do my best to answer them.
If you have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat or the Q&A box. We'll wait for a little bit. Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah. I know that was a lot of information for everybody to digest in one go, but yeah, I was trying to cover a broad topic. So
In an hour window.
yeah.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. A recording of the webinar will be posted at cap.unl.edu. There you can also sign up for other register for other webinars. We'd also really appreciate it if you could send us feedback. There's going to be a brief evaluation pop up when you leave the webinar. If you could fill it out, we would greatly appreciate it. If you have any desire for any other topics that you want us to cover, go ahead and enter that in the survey, and we'll try to address those in future webinars. Thank you for joining us, and thank you, Shannon.
Thank you.